This is Arkansas 11, KTHV Little Rock.
The Arkansas crime boom is taking its toll on the state prison system. Department of Corrections Chief Roger Endell has been on the job only 3 months, and he has had to take strong measures to make room for convicts, letting other convicts out of prison early.
And we will continue every month to release prisoners early. The system is full. It remains full. There's no relief in sight, with the exception of 400 new beds that could come online as soon as the legislature approves a supplemental request for the Eastern Arkansas Regional Center. But even when that institution is full, it will only remove part of the backlog in the jails.
Currently, the system is in need of about 500 beds, and the need grows from 500 to 700 a year. Under the current structure, Endell estimates a need of nearly 4,000 beds by the turn of the century. Total cost, $88 million. Costs that high have lawmakers searching for alternatives. One of the most talked about is Governor Tucker's Community Punishment Program, which Endell and Tucker hope will save space and money.
What we would do then is reserve the main prison system for those people who are assaultive, who are dangerous, commit crimes against people, as opposed to those who are crimes against property, theft crimes. Those people who are non-assaultive, we can move into community corrections programs.
On paper, the plan shows tremendous savings. Keeping one inmate out of prison and in community corrections saves about $23 a day. The plan also looks to reduce to $5 million a year in reimbursements to counties holding state prisoners. But the biggest savings could be in construction. Not having to build new bed space could save tens of millions of dollars. Overall, Endell estimates the plan would save more than $200 million by the year 2000. But there are no guarantees the program will be a success, that it will not get as crowded as the prison system itself. And to top it all, the prison system does still need additional bed space. And the places that Roger Endell and his corrections department are looking to aren't rolling out the welcome mat. Anthony Hewlin, 11 Action News, Little Rock. This was Acre Air Force Base in its heyday, alive with the roar of B-52 bombers and thousands of jobs. And this is Acre today, an almost deserted city. The hangars are empty, as well as 400 base homes. And this is how Roger Endell would like to see it, as one of the state's newest prisons.
There's a large part of that campus that we could literally move into right now. All that would be required would be some updating and a little remodeling and some fencing.
Endell says moving into the barracks facility at Acre would save millions of dollars. Estimates show a new 1,000-bed facility would cost about $27 million. The Acre plan would cost the state less than $1.5 million. But Blytheville officials have other ideas.
There is a marketing program or marketing emphasis that is being initiated, and of course, in keeping with one of the primary considerations for this facility, and that is an air-related facility.
Some residents of the small town that borders the base aren't too happy about the idea either.
I think a lot of retirement homes that people would want to retire out here would be afraid to, for one thing. I think the aerospace that may come in here wouldn't want it on account of that. They'd be afraid they couldn't keep their stuff nailed down.
So at the last correction board meeting, Endell told directors he would hold off on the Acre plan, but only for now.
So I suspect, given some time, the Acre Air Force Blytheville people will probably come around. For one thing, they have a very difficult situation in that they have to maintain that base, and they don't have the money to do that.
So for now, Acre remains dormant, with officials seeking something else to give the base a glimmer of its past. Anthony Hewlin, 11 Action News, Blytheville.
John Hickman sat quietly through the testimony last night. That's not what the school district's attorney had planned.
I wanted to start with Mr. Hickman, but the board wouldn't allow me to do that.
The signs will be taken down.
A vocal and often openly hostile crowd of Hickman supporters was asked to remove protest signs from the walls. Sammy Mills was in that crowd.
I hope last night that they would hold their contention and not be so adamant and responsive to some of the things that were said. I think in the future there will have to be some control.
Midway into the public hearing, the school board asked that television cameras be turned off. over the objections of Hickman's attorney and supporters.
The people in the community have a right to see the proceedings. It was asked that the proceedings be open.
At the end of 6 hours of testimony, little had been resolved. The district's attorney is asking that Hickman's suspension be extended until April 15th.
The school board seemed to have an agenda, so I'm really not sure whether he's getting a fair shake. I hope that he does.
I think we need to let the process continue. It's going as it should be. We've got strong advocacy for all of the issues related to the situation.
The hearing is set to resume Tuesday night at 7. At that time, Hickman could take the stand in his own defense. But in the meantime, school officials have their hands full with frustrated students at Central High.
Central High students were leaning out of the windows at mid-morning, corralled in the same classrooms for more than 2 hours, a lockdown that kept the cops huddled around the corner in case trouble erupted.
It's tense because they know something's going on and everyone's looking out the windows and wondering what's going on. Because something that's bad about Central High is they don't let us know anything.
The tension was rippling out of the school's cafeteria, where about 100 students were holed up, staging a sit-in over John Hickman's suspension. Vanessa Frazier saw the protest, and her son was part of it.
They have set and let these things boil into a fester, and now the students it's an explosive situation just waiting to occur.
At 11:30, the bell rang and students finally changed classes, while security guards helped move the protesters to the auditorium. Their demand had been met. A meeting with the superintendent was about to happen.
I certainly want to be responsive to these young persons, and as much as I can be, reasonably, and that's what I'm going to go do.
Superintendent Byrne talked with the students for an hour and a half, a roundtable discussion on their terms, but apparently to his liking, and enough to get the protesters back to class.
They ask a lot of questions relating to this whole situation. They're very concerned about Mr. Hickman. There's obviously a lot of affection on the part of those young people for him.
He plans to meet with the students again, believing that's the best way to ease their concerns and keep the peace. Dinah Tyler, 11 Action News, Little Rock.
After 13 years on the street, Officer Larry Mickle now directs traffic in the hallways of North Little Rock High School.
I have a lot of the kids that talk to me away from school as well as up here.
Although he wears his gun and badge, Mickle says his role here is an educational one.
Counseling is one of the very major things that we do, as well as teach courses in the class to make them understand what the law is, to make them understand what traffic violations there may be.
He says the door to his office is always open, not only to students, but parents.
They may be running around at night and not doing what the parents wish to do. They may be having some type of home problem.
Mickle is a friendly face, but the uniform does carry weight with troublemakers.
Having a police car out on front and having a police officer on campus is definitely going to deter.
He's on the people that want to do right, not the people that do bad. I mean, he's here to patrol for the people that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing.
The kids that I've had come into my class, in my office, have talked to anything of being high on drugs, to having an alcohol problem or having home problems.
Mickle is also talking up his job to cadets who might someday want to be part of the program. In just 2 years, the Resource Officer program has been so successful that it's expanding. Next year, 3 officers will join the program. They'll be assigned to middle schools. Sandy Finkbeiner, 11 Action News, North Little Rock.
Central High students were marching with a purpose from the fringes of campus along the tree-lined streets of Little Rock. Every step was taken in protest of John Hickman's suspension.
I want my principal back. Mr. Hickman, we want Mr. Hickman back.
Mr. Hickman is only one of the teachers or one of the people in the school I know who, really cared for me, and helped me out, when I was on my lower part of education,
The march moved on with the students careful to stay on the sidewalks. They didn't have a parade permit and couldn't veer into the streets.
Little Rock Police have told us that we need to stay on the sidewalk and out of traffic. As long as we do that, we won't have any problems.
The protesters strolled past the state capitol.
Free Mr. Hickman!
Then down Markham, stopping at the steps of the school administration building, where a red ribbon blocked the door. They crowded behind it, students absent from class with a message for the superintendent.
I to believe Hickman will be free someday.
We're not in a position where we can make them go to school. What we can do is demand a certain behavior when they're there, and at least to this point, the students have behaved very well.
And if they didn't, the cops were standing by. But the only tense moments came during a speech on racism by Representative Bill Walker.
This is a public building, and they got ribbons around the public. I'm gonna do them a favor.
The students didn't rush forward. They just shredded the ribbon and promised to keep protesting until Principal Hickman is back and Superintendent Byrne is gone. Dinah Tyler, 11 Action News, Little Rock.
You mentioned something to me earlier. You said there might be something there, but maybe not as bad as what they want you to believe.
It might be something. I don't think they really just came out of nowhere. It might be something. It might be as little as 15 cents, or it could be $1,500. I don't know, because I wasn't there. But I don't believe it is what they're making it. I really don't. They say they don't want the public into it, but they can't help. They brought all the students into it. He's done a wonderful thing for us.
A lot of folks watching this tonight would say, hey, she would have been better off in a classroom today than picketing. What do you think? What do you say to them?
I feel you're right. I would have been better off in a classroom. But my rights, I feel I should stand up. I've been taught to stand up for what I believe in. And if the students don't stand up, I'm 18 years old, I can vote now. I'm glad to vote. I've been wanting to vote a long time. But if I don't stand up for my rights, who's going to stand up for what I believe in?
What's running through your mind as you go into this?
Oh, just life and God's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think the kids should be missing school for the protest?
I think that these kids are making some statements and are being heard, and I think that's wonderful.
Are you going to get in tonight into getting specific about your defense?
If time is allowed.
Yeah.
Day 3 of the hearing looked much like the first two. A crowd outside the boardroom watching it on television and a crowd inside. First came a disagreement over whether to allow as evidence conflicting statements on the sexual misconduct charge.
And I think in view of the fact that we've seen this information and we've heard comments regarding it, that it's probably of no value to have these statements given to us as official documents.
But Hamilton was overruled in a vote. Then Associate Superintendent Janet Bernard, who began the Hickman investigation, took the stand. Her testimony ignited a round of bickering between the two attorneys.
Gentlemen, listen, we've been here 45 minutes and we haven't done squat as far as getting information from this witness. Let's proceed, let's be professional, let's do this in a gentlemanly manner and get this thing on the road here.
Bernard was asked why she notified superiors about the sexual misconduct and missing funds charges.
I believe then, and I believe here today, that she was telling the truth. After investigating the lip sync, there were still many unanswered questions. The money is not there.
Reaction to the hearing wasn't limited to the boardroom, though. Callers on a local radio show had diverse opinions.
They're making a mountain out of a molehill.
A mountain out of a molehill, probably for John Hickman. His ability to earn a living and get employment for the rest of his life is a mountain.
But the man in the middle of all this has little to say.
I'm not saying anything until afterwards. You can understand, can't you say?
Sandy Finkbeiner, 11 Action News, Little Rock.
This is what this bill protects: the health of the mother, the health of the woman. This bill is pro-woman.
They are scenes that have been played out over and over at the state capitol during this legislative battle over abortion rights.
It is nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to prevent a woman from having an abortion and has nothing to do with providing information.
Though the rhetoric rarely changes, today the arena did, after hearing both sides state their positions on the bill that would require a 24-hour waiting period for an abortion. This Senate committee was quiet and matter-of-fact when it unanimously supported a motion of do not pass.
Those favoring the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion carried.
No one seems surprised about the failure of the bill. Word around the Capitol for the past few weeks had been the Senate Public Health Committee couldn't wait to defeat House Bill 1534. In the end, that's exactly what happened.
It was interesting to me that no senators asked questions, which indicates to me that this was more or less a formality. The minds had been made up.
I believe that by the time a woman makes up her mind to have an abortion, she doesn't need any further grief about it.
So for now, the bill is dead, but with enough support from the full Senate, it could be revived on that chamber's floor. Lisa Beckham, 11 Action News at the state capitol. It's not often that Arkansas Republicans find themselves fielding a candidate with a clear advantage over, so far, nameless, faceless Democratic competition. But that's exactly what they have in Mike Huckabee and his probable run for lieutenant governor. Now Republicans say Democrats are using their numbers in the state legislature to change the rules of a game they fear they might lose this time.
If they pass this, it's just another excuse for Tucker to delay the election until they can find a candidate.
Legislators and state constitutional officers are prohibited by law from collecting campaign funds 30 days before, during, and 30 days after any legislative session. A bill by Senator David Malone would extend that coverage to anyone running for state office.
It was put in to say that if one side can't raise money, then the other side shouldn't be allowed to raise money.
Exploratory committees are mentioned for the first time in this bill, and I think that's another indication that's aimed directly at Mike.
Well, there are all kinds of accusations that can be made. They've got a proposed amendment, then the process works out here.
The GOP is now suing to force Governor Tucker to call a special election. Still no word on when he will make that call. Lisa Beckham, 11 Action News at the state capitol.
I think it's very common sense.
Until there's a constitutional convention, there is this, the biennial ritual whereby Arkansas legislators choose the 3 constitutional amendments they are allowed by law to put before voters.
Did you think about maybe we don't even need a lieutenant governor and we could just abolish that office?
Several House resolutions this time around involve the powers of the governor and lieutenant governor, taking into consideration the vast improvement in communications and travel in the 119 years since the drafting of the state constitution.
It doesn't make any difference who the lieutenant governor is, the president pro tem of the Senate or the Speaker of the House or anybody else. The governor is going to remain governor when he goes out of the state.
A resolution by Representative Mark Pryor is more comprehensive, allowing state officers and legislators to resign to run for another office. The governor would appoint any midterm replacements. And in the event the governor dies or is incapable of serving, the lieutenant governor clearly takes his place.
We recently had a case that went to the state Supreme Court dealing with that, about whether he just assumed the powers of the office or he actually assumed the office, and this would clear that up.
The same process also began today in Senate committee for discussion recall elections, term limits, and a sales tax to benefit parks and tourism. House and Senate committees have until Friday to come up with a consensus on the 3 amendments they'll offer to voters. In the words of one legislator, that first joint meeting is where true chaos begins. Lisa Beckham, 11 Action News at the state capitol.
Sheriff Pridgeon, someone will call and say, I want to talk to that woman sheriff.
That woman sheriff is accustomed to remarks like that. Judy Pridgeon doesn't even have a uniform yet, but she does have her hands full.
Well, when you're the head of something like the sheriff, the buck stops with you, so it's a little bit different. It took me a while to get in here and get things organized.
Pridgeon had a rough initiation to the job. Just hours after being sworn in on New Year's Eve, she was called to a murder-suicide at a family home.
It's bad with it being children there in the home, and victims are always the ones that you have to take care of.
Pridgeon began by hiring much-needed new deputies. The next order of business was cleaning up the department's image with new uniforms.
You had some that was in the regular type pants, like this type of material. Others were in jeans, and some wore a baseball cap.
We've put them in uniform pants and hats and polished brass and polished shoes.
Next came a paint job for the building.
It's just made a difference in the whole atmosphere. It's clean and people work better. And
other problems will take more time to solve, like an overcrowded jail. Pridgeon meets with the inmates almost daily.
Looks good. You did a good job.
Thank you.
See y'all later.
All right. Thank you.
The fact that Pridgeon is a woman was a big issue during the campaign, but now...
Sheriff Pridgeon was elected as the sheriff, and I don't consider her a female or male. She's just the sheriff, my boss.
The sheriff says she wants to make more changes, but like any new administration, it's going to take time.
And that first Monday that I took over, I probably had approximately 100 phone calls that day. Everybody wanted me to solve all the problems I'd had for 4 years. You know, I didn't even know where the keys were yet.
Sandy Finkbeiner, 11 Action News in Saline County.
It's been done in other states, but never all in one comprehensive package. Today, with a flick of the wrist, Arkansas Governor Jim Guy Tucker made 2 years of work on correction reform, the law of the land.
This legislation is as far-reaching as any in the nation in trying to provide for truth in sentencing, in trying to assure a better expenditure of taxpayers' dollars.
In all, Tucker signed 18 correction bills into law. Chief among them, one creating a Department of Community Punishment designed to clear out penitentiary beds for hardened criminals. Nonviolent offenders will serve the full term of their sentence, but they'll do it in community punishment centers, and they'll perform services for the communities most hurt by crime.
They're generally first offenders, often young, often their crimes involve drug or alcohol problems. We need to address those problems as best we can, get them back in the community and see if they can become productive.
The governor admits the legislation is not perfect, and he says he won't be ashamed to make changes if they're needed down the line.
We've tended to keep things on the books for long periods of time and not want to go back and fix things. Governor Tucker is very committed to listening to the public.
The Department of Correction has been the fastest growing part of the Arkansas budget over the past 13 years. With this new legislation in place, Governor Tucker hopes to see a dramatic turnaround in those expenditures over the coming decade. Lisa Beckham, 11 Action News at the state capitol.
Blanche Lambert's November victory has made her one of more than 100 freshman legislators on Capitol Hill. Serving in her first public office, Congresswoman Lambert admits her new duties are tremendous.
We have had a busy time in Washington. We've been working hard. We've already passed 3 bills, and we're busy in our committee assignments kind of getting acclimated. And they're being real nice. There's a lot of new kids on the block up there these go around.
Lambert is pleased with her committee assignments, which include merchant marine fishery and agriculture. She sees that as a plus coming from 7 generations of farmers. But there's another appointment she's received that tops both.
It's the first time in 12 years they've seen freshmen on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and we're real excited about that. It covers about 65% of all legislation that comes through Capitol Hill, so it has a wide jurisdiction, and it'll be dealing with a lot of the different issues that we face on a day-to-day basis in eastern Arkansas and in the 1st District.
Lambert believes President Clinton's stand on admitting gays into the military deserves careful consideration, and she's waiting to hear from military personnel.
And then come back to us with their findings on what they feel like the lifting of that ban would do to the morale, as well as the strength and the capability of our armed forces. So I'm listening right now to the many voices that are very, very important to me, both the voices from the military and those military professionals, as well as the voices in my district.
Healthcare reform and boosting the economy continue to be on the top of her list of priorities. And for voters who think this congresswoman is living high on the hog off taxpayers' money, Blanche Lambert says think again.
But during lunchtime, we were working during lunch in the cloakroom. The only thing you can get in the cloakroom basically is a tuna fish sandwich and a hot dog. So there's a lot of misconceptions on some of those lines that we do a lot of hard work. And
Rochelle Davis, 11 Action News, Little Rock.
And we're real excited about the potential for Arkansas because we've got some great